Donald Trump promised to make America great again, respected again, admired across the world again. But if greatness is measured by how many people want to come and see it for themselves, then America's never looked smaller. Tourism is collapsing. International travelers are turning away. And far from being the world's dream destination, the United States is being quietly rejected. From Canadians who once poured billions into Florida, to Europeans skipping New York and California, to Asian visitors now hit with new visa fees, the message is spreading. America isn't worth it anymore. And before we dive into the details, if stories like this matter to you, hit like and subscribe. It helps more people discover what's really happening. Because today, we're digging into the numbers, the consequences, and the irony. The country that said it didn't need the world's tourists is starting to feel what happens when the world doesn't come. The one country America thought it could always count on just walked away. For decades, Canadians poured billions into U.S. tourism. From winter snowbirds in Florida to weekend shoppers in Buffalo, the relationship seemed unbreakable. But in 2025, the numbers tell a different story. Car trips into the U.S. plunged nearly 37%. Air travel dropped another 26%. That's not a dip. That's a statement. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has publicly dismissed talk of a Canadian boycott, insisting the visitors are still coming. But the numbers on the ground tell a different story. Florida alone lost more than 100,000 Canadian tourists in just one quarter. At some airports, arrivals from Canada are down as much as 30%. That's not a trickle. That's a collapse. Canadians used to spend over $6 billion a year in Florida alone. That money isn't vanishing. It's being rerouted. To Portugal, to Mexico, to the Caribbean. Places where they feel welcomed, respected, and safe. For many, this isn't just about cost. It's about dignity. After years of being mocked or dismissed by U.S. politicians, countless Canadians are making a quiet, powerful choice. They're done. What was once a loyal ritual, the Canadian snowbird season, is breaking. And if America can lose Canada, its oldest friend, imagine what's happening across the Atlantic. If Canada's retreat was a warning, Europe's summer numbers are a full-on alarm bell. Summer is supposed to be America's golden season. The one time of year when planes from Europe land full, Times Square overflows with tourists, and hotels from Miami to Los Angeles raise their rates because demand is so high. But in 2025, the story is upside down. The latest July figures show German visitors down more than 15%. Denmark? A jaw-dropping 37% collapse. Even Switzerland, long one of the most dependable high-spending markets, slid nearly 13%. And it isn't just about cost. Europeans have grown weary of America's image. News stories of travelers detained at airports, constant tariff fights, and the feeling of being disrespected by U.S. leaders have chipped away at the idea of America as a welcoming destination. One French tourism expert even called it unprecedented, saying collapses like this have only ever happened in countries at war or facing health crises, never in normal conditions. Meanwhile, Europeans are still traveling, just not across the Atlantic. Spain, Italy, and Greece are packed to the brim. Airlines are adding flights to the Mediterranean while quietly scaling back U.S. routes. For decades, Europe treated America as the ultimate cultural trip. But that admiration is cracking. And if even Europe is walking away at the height of summer, imagine how much worse it gets when new visa fees start hitting Asia. If Europe is walking away by choice, Asia is being pushed out by America's rules. Tourism from Asia is already sliding. South Korea has dropped more than 11%, the Philippines nearly 12%, and Hong Kong almost 20%. These aren't seasonal dips. They're double-digit collapses in some of the fastest-growing markets America once depended on. And instead of repairing the damage, Washington is tightening the screws. A new visa integrity fee of $250 now hits travelers from India, China, Brazil, and dozens of others outside the visa waiver program. For middle-class families, that's not a small surcharge. It's the breaking point that decides whether they book the U.S. or skip it. Even more alarming is what's next. The State Department has floated a deposit scheme that could force some visitors to hand over up to $15,000 As insurance, they won't overstay their visa. Imagine trying to plan a 2-week holiday while wiring more money than the entire trip would cost. Meanwhile, Asia's own tourism hubs, Japan, Thailand, Singapore, are booming with record arrivals. The very travelers America is pushing away are being welcomed and spending elsewhere. If Europe's retreat was a wake-up call, Asia's rejection is the breaking point. And now, the spotlight shifts to New York, the city America thought could never falter. Florida was the warning sign, but New York is the proof that America's tourism crisis is real. In 2025, the city that once symbolized the American dream is bracing for a staggering 17% drop in international arrivals. 2 million fewer foreign tourists in a single year. And because international visitors make up just 20% of arrivals but half of all spending, the financial hit is even greater. Tour operators are sounding the alarm. Canadian groups, once a cornerstone of New York's business, are pulling back. One tour company reported losing 40% of its bookings. Another guide said her walking tours that once drew 20 people now struggle to attract 5. The reasons? Immigration headaches, hostile rhetoric, and the fear that entering the U.S. just isn't worth the stress. An Australian traveler put it bluntly, "There's worldwide fear about what is happening in the U.S. People think of better destinations instead." And this isn't just a New York story. Goldman Sachs estimates rising anti-U.S. sentiment could cost the economy up to $90 billion this year, with lost tourism at the center. America promised to be great again. Yet New York, the crown jewel, the city meant to represent that greatness, is facing its sharpest collapse since the pandemic. And if even New York can't hold the world's attention, smaller U.S. destinations don't stand a chance. Amid all the declines, there is one exception. Not every country is turning its back. Argentina, for example, has actually surged, up more than 20% this year. Flights are fuller, arrivals are climbing, and on paper it looks like a bright spot. Mexico, too, has held relatively steady thanks to cross-border shopping and family ties. But here's the reality. These bumps don't come close to replacing what's been lost elsewhere. A rise in Argentine visitors or a steady stream from Mexico can't cover the billions once spent by Canadians wintering in Florida, Europeans crowding Broadway, or Asian families vacationing in California. Even where numbers grow, the spending power is different. Europeans and Asians stay longer, book more expensive hotels, and pour money into attractions. Losing them means losing the high-value travelers America was counting on to reach pre-pandemic highs. So yes, there are exceptions. A few countries are still sending tourists. But in the bigger picture, these aren't signs of strength. They're reminders of weakness. When the best America can point to is a modest rise from Argentina while its biggest markets are shrinking, the message is clear. The gap is widening. And it's a gap no slogan about greatness can fill. It's one thing when travelers choose to skip America. It's another when foreign governments start warning their citizens to stay away. In 2025, that's exactly what's happening. Countries in Europe, Asia, and beyond have issued advisories urging caution for anyone visiting the United States. Gun violence, healthcare costs, and unpredictable immigration policies have all combined to make America look less safe than ever. Even Canada, America's oldest ally, has toughened its travel advisory. Ottawa now warns citizens to expect scrutiny at all points of entry, including searches of electronic devices. The data backs it up. Between April and June alone, U.S. border officers searched nearly 15,000 phones, laptops, and other devices, a record high. Some travelers have even been detained for weeks. For families planning a holiday, that kind of headline is enough to change plans. Nobody wants to explain to their kids why customs officers are rifling through their phones. And when governments themselves advise, be prepared for detention or device searches, travelers don't just think twice. They book flights to Spain, Japan, or Mexico instead. For decades, America warned its citizens about unstable countries abroad. Now, it's America being flagged as the risky destination. That shift says more than any statistic ever could. When you put it all together, Canada pulling back, Europe's summer collapse, Asia being pushed out by new visa rules, even New York bleeding millions of visitors, the picture becomes clear. America doesn't just have a tourism problem. It has a reputation problem. For decades, the United States sold itself as the world's dream destination: safe, exciting, full of opportunity. But in 2025, that image is cracking. Headlines about gun violence, chaotic politics, and airport detentions now shape how foreigners see the U.S. Too often, the first word they associate with America isn't freedom or fun, it's risk. And the data backs it up. The latest Democracy Perception Index, covering more than 110,000 people in 100 countries, shows America's global standing collapsing since Trump's return. A majority now view the U.S. negatively, with particularly sharp declines in Europe. For the first time, China has overtaken the United States in global favorability. That's not just bad PR, it's devastating for tourism. Why gamble on a country the world increasingly distrusts when Spain, Italy, or Thailand feel safer and more welcoming? Trump promised to make America great again, respected again, admired again. Instead, America is being quietly rejected, not just by governments or politicians, but by ordinary travelers who are voting with their passports. When the world stops showing up, greatness isn't just questioned, it's gone. If 2025 was the year the world rejected Trump's America, 2026 could be worse. Emptier hotels, fewer arrivals, billions more lost. Because once tourists change habits, they don't always come back. The promise was greatness. The reality is decline. The question now is simple. Can America turn it around before the world stops showing up entirely?